This is Justin Harris. I'm going to tell you how to get big today. Stay tuned.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to another installment of Guru Talk. I'm Dave Palumbo. Today's guest, Justin Harris, is going to tell us how to get big, because you know what? I think that is a lost art in today's world of bodybuilding, and he and I are going to go over some simple principles and some of the most important things that you should focus on if your goal is to put on a lot of mass. Because, well, let me bring him in. Welcome, Justin. Good to talk to you. We haven't talked for a while.
Yeah, what's up, Dave? Yeah, I think I was. We were joking. Was that the piano picture? Were I telling you about that? That's right. Yeah.
I should put that piano picture up. I should forward it to myself. Hold on.
It's been like
Story about how
20
we
years.
met. Tell the story about how we met.
We met at Space Nightclub in Detroit. You remember that?
Oh, we did. That's right. You're right. Holy
I
shit.
was a bouncer. Yeah, I was prepping for like the 2004 Mr. Michigan or something. Geez, I can't remember who you came in with. I don't think it was another bodybuilder.
You know,
But
you did that.
I was.
Wasn't that after the Junior USA that you did?
You know what? I mean, it's like 20 years. So I like my memory of things I learned. You know, you think you have a crystal clear timeline, and you tell someone else, and they're like, "What are you talking about?"
I think the Space was in 2001 or 2. You're right. It might have been before the Junior USA. So yeah, tell the story.
I think so. Yeah. Well, the reason I think so is because, you know, I came from like small towns, and I had never met a real bodybuilder. You know, and I hadn't really done my first show yet, and so I was just
Right.
like, yeah, I was like, holy crap, I got some work to do, because you were a big boy then.
That's funny. So do you remember who I came into Space with?
No, I don't. You were with another couple.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, geez, I don't remember, but I don't think they were bodybuilders.
I think that was yeah, I can't remember that. All right, so then I ran into you at the Junior USA, I believe in 2001 or 2, right? When did you do that?
That was 2006. So yeah, so
so maybe it was 04. Okay, so 2006 I run into you at the Junior USA, and I had just started putting shit up on my DavePalumbo.com website. I'd go to shows and I'd post pictures, and we did a photo shoot of you, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, I don't think anyone knew who I was, so I don't think no one even knew who I was, so I wasn't expected to do anything, or no one was looking for me, and I did well. You know, I ended up winning super heavies, so I did well.
You look great.
Thank you. Yeah, and so you were my first, I think, official photo shoot, actually. And it's lived in infamy in my wife's family for nearly 20 years now.
Did she send me the picture? Did you send me that picture?
Probably her. They all have that photo saved on speed dial. Anytime there's a group chat, you guys feeling frisky? Boom, there's the photo.
Yeah, hold on, I got it. Hold on. You know, it's funny because I try to mimic the Kevin Levrone photo shoot.
You know, well, you know how it's like how when you're in the bodybuilding mode, whether things look goofy or all you care about is how you look is from a bodybuilding perspective. Right, so I loved the photo because I thought I looked great. You know, I mean, you could put a rose in my mouth. I wouldn't have cared. I didn't pay attention to any of that. I just thought I looked good.
What impressed me about you was the fact that you actually had some insane conditioning. You had a lot of size. You kind of came out of nowhere. It reminded me of what I did in '95. And I wanted to showcase that because I was like, wow, this guy really, must, what he's doing. And there wasn't a lot of guys just popping up out of nowhere at that time that were doing stuff like that. I got the picture. Hold on. It's not the best resolution, but you guys are going to have to bear with us.
Yeah.
There it is. I mean, you had a pair of wheels on you. You had a small waist, good abs.
Yeah,
So,
that's my first official bodybuilding photo.
there you go.
So,
There you go.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah, like you
why
said,
is it?
you 95 and 96. I tell people, I've been saying it forever, there was a handful of photos that I can never find of you around that time where you were just probably the most impressive. I think possibly the most impressive physique I've ever seen. I mean,
Thank you.
because you were like 315, 320 and contest condition. And I just
Yeah.
feel like it's always bugged me that doesn't get more, because people always post photos from you, like when you took second, was it the
Right.
USA's, was that like 2002, which was a good
Yeah.
look, but your look in like 96 was just such a different beast.
Yeah. I was when I placed fourth at the Nationals in '96. When Cutler won, I was like a lot bigger than those guys. I was like probably 20 pounds bigger than everyone,
And in better,
muscle wise. Yeah, better condition.
yeah, that's I mean, Cutler obviously deserved to turn pro. I don't know that he deserved in that show. I think he looked better at what did he do, the Tournament of Champions the year
Oh
before?
yeah.
And
He wasn't that hard in that show.
Yeah, he looked really good at that show at the USA's. He just wasn't quite that hard. I think Lonnie Teeper even made I remember in the magazine said that was like the worst call ever. He's just going to be another big blocky white guy who's going to do nothing in the pros.
Little did everyone know. Yeah, right. You know what the weird thing was that Cutler lost the overall. A lot of people don't realize in '96 to Willie Stalling in the light heavyweight, who actually is the guy who beat me at the junior nationals in the overall, which I thought was a bad call because I was crazy shredded at that point.
Yeah.
Jay would have lost if he was in better shape. So, but Willie was really good bodybuilder, and all this rehashing all this, looking back at your pictures, my pictures, it behooves me to. I can't come to grips with why the fact that guys can't get big anymore. There are a couple of genetic freaks out there, so I'm not trying to say that no one's getting big, but I'm saying that there was a lot more people in the '90s that seemed to be coming up when I came up that were just big guys, and I think it has. And I'm going to ask you your question. I really believe it has a lot to do with the training that we were doing back then, because everyone wanted to be like Dorian. But what do you think is the problem? Why aren't guys putting on 15, 20 pounds of muscle a year like we did back then?
I think it's a combination of things, but I think part of it is like I don't know if it's mental or what you would call it, but like female bodybuilding conditioning is typically outstanding. And I think because the females who do that are several standard deviations from the norm as far as mental toughness and desire, and it's because it's even more socially shunned than male bodybuilding, so anyone that's willing to do that is, like just a hyper obsessed individual. And I think bodybuilding was smaller and more cultish at the time. And I think you had more people like that. But I mean, what I noticed myself is, like you said, the training, like I never heard someone complain, that a training was too hard or got them out of breath, or we're now like, I'll send programs to clients, and they'll tell me, I'd never be able to recover from that in prep, or which maybe is true, but like that wasn't a thought. It was just, like you said with Dorian, and it can't be the gear because it was way harder to get then. Everything's so readily available now, and there was no GH then. I mean, there was, but like no one was using like they are now. And the other thing is the diet. Like 2 hours of cardio a day and like fish and rice and fish and asparagus was like no one batted an eye. That's what you did, We're now like, if I put people over 30 minutes of cardio in a day, I'm hesitant to send it because it's like, okay, how are they going to complain? They're going to say it's too much cardio, that, where like you did 2 hours a day without thinking about it back then.
Right. I even did some days with 2 hours of cardio, and I probably didn't even need to do that much cardio just because it was the thing to do. Like,
yeah.
But I see the same thing though. I think that people, and I think even the coaches, are afraid to make guys suffer because they think they're going to go someplace else to another coach who's going to give them more food.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're not seeing paper thin, grainy conditioning. And I'm not saying there's always guys that are doing the right thing, but I'm saying the majority of people are not attaining that look.
I think you
And
almost get a reputation as a coach also. I feel like I'm kind of known for adding size on people. And
yeah,
so I always feel like I get put behind the eight ball a lot where guys will come to me specifically to move up a weight class. And it's like, if you give
right,
me a year, yes, yeah, sure, but they'll come to me, 5 months before a contest and they want to move up a weight class. And it's like, well,
yeah,
that's going to be tough. Where other coaches, like I think like an AJ Sims, like he's known for, guys go to him because of they want to become in condition, and it's almost like
yeah,
self-fulfilling. If you come in,
yeah,
pick a new coach because you want to come in shredded, you're going to do everything necessary to do that, I think.
right,
But yeah, part of it is, and you you just said, it used to be, I never even thought, I would just send the diet changes, never even crossed my mind what their view of it or thinking of it was, because I knew people were just going to do it. Where now I feel like I do, I kind of like hesitate, like, well, is this person going to be upset about this? Is they going to complain? Are they going to say it's too much? Are they going to not follow it without telling me? And
yeah.
then of course also, are they going to go to a coach who'll tell them that they can get in shape eating 3,500 calories a day with no cardio? Because there was a phase there, like when Meadows was really big, where that everyone wanted to not do cardio.
Right. Yeah. Except most people need cardio. Most people are not like you or me or Meadows, So
Yeah, well, that's
it,
the thing. Most people don't come in shape even with cardio. So
right, right. I send over my changes. I don't even think twice about whether people care or not, because I don't give a shit. If you want to leave, you leave.
yeah,
It doesn't matter. I do things my way. I know I get great results doing it. And if people don't, if it's not in fashion enough for people, then they can go someplace else. I have enough clients, and there's enough people out there to coach that I don't care if I lose a couple of people. I think I keep a lot of people because of the fact that I don't, try to, you know, curtail or try to, cater to their whims and local social media whims. But I'm going to get to you in a second. I want to ask you size. That's what we're talking about today. What's the secret? Your secret? What do you think the right formula is to get people to put on 15, 20 pounds of muscle a year? Because we know that when guys are in their mid to early 20s, even the late 20s, they have the ability to put that kind
oh,
of mass on. Why are some people doing it and other people gain 1 pound from year to year?
I always think it's partly because people are trying to gain weight or gain size. If you're trying to gain weight, it's almost always going to be fat. Just because, even if even 15 pounds of muscle in a year is a pound a month.
Yeah,
So your weight fluctuates from water retention. And maybe if you're big, 10 or 15 pounds even a day. At my biggest, I could wake up at 272 and go to bed at 290 without batting an eye. And
yeah,
if I woke up particularly dry and I went to bed particularly watery or whatever. So it's hard to track. So I try to avoid the weight portion. And I say, like, what causes the size? And so I say, like, it's the two-step process. We try to get more and more good, clean food through you. Good lean protein source, good complex carbs, healthy fats, and I carb cycle. But whatever you do, the goal is basically to continually push more and more food, provided that we're not adding too much body fat. And then the,
right,
the second phase is just like get brutally strong in the gym, or whatever metric you use to track progress. I think progressive overload has a pretty good track record, and I think you'll be hard pressed to find a very massive bodybuilder who's not also strong. You can get lost in the weeds and get to where you're worried more about moving the weight rather than making the muscle move the weight, and that's like a
right,
nuanced portion of it. But all things being equal, if you were eating 3,000 calories a day and we get you to 5,500 calories a day and you're not fat and you're strong as hell, you're going to be big whether you want to or not. You're not going to be eating 7,000 calories a day and like Dorian Yates, rowing 455 for strict reps and not be big. So that's
right.
what I try to work on. I just have guys, we try to eat more without getting fat, and then whatever they prefer as their metric of progress in the gym, make sure we're progressing. I prefer progressive overload.
Before we go to the training, go to a meal. Give me like a typical meal that you would give someone in the course of a day, like
Well, mine
something on
rotates.
average.
So I do carb cycling on like on a normal training day. Like what I used to eat would be like I wasn't a really high protein guy. I would eat like 6 ounces of meat. For me, it was usually red meat in the off season, flank steak, round steak, like 2 cups of rice or 20 ounces of potatoes, and then something like 10 grams of fat from avocado or guacamole. Back when I competed, I used more oils, but that's what I prefer now. And then I also I try to do a little thermodynamic cheat. On days they don't train, I take the carbs and calories lower, so that like sometimes 3 days a week, if they're really big guys, will take the carbs really, really high, and we would use insulin on that day.
Like how much insulin? What kind of insulin?
Well, so I use insulin differently, I think, than most people. I like fast acting insulin, but what I do is I set the diet, and so we build a diet, and it'll be high carb. My big guys are like at 1,000 grams of carbs, and maybe 260 grams protein, 250 to 275. So a lot of calories, a lot of carbs.
You
But what I
drop
do,
protein on those days that you do more carbs?
what's that?
You'll drop protein on the days you do more carbs?
Yeah, not dramatically, maybe 10 grams per meal, so 60 grams or so for the day, maybe a little more, something, but not much more than, no more than 15 grams a meal. But yeah, it's lower. But we're creating a little bit of a deficit on the days off, not a big one, but a little bit. And then I really push the carbs. And so then what I do is, I always thought everyone used insulin wrong. They would take 15 IUs of insulin and then say, well, I need to eat at least this many carbs to not go hypo. But it's like, you don't know if that's the right amount of carbs for you, So, but if we build a diet and I do these high carb days and we know that it works without insulin, we know that you're not gaining too much body fat. We know that you're processing the food pretty well. If we do that and then we add insulin to the equation, we know that some of the excess glucose that might have otherwise gone through the fatty acid synthesis pathway and be stored as fat now has a slightly higher likelihood of being stored as glycogen, because of the insulin. We know that some of the amino acids that might go through, gluconeogenesis and then the fatty acid synthesis pathway, if they're excess calories, now have a slightly higher chance of being synthesized as muscle proteins because the insulin increases amino acid uptake into the muscle cell. And so it's a small change. It's maybe like a couple grams a day max. But if you do the math, if you break down, and everyone listening is going to hate this because I do this every podcast and I get flack for it. But if you take someone who gained 10 pounds in a year and divide that evenly by 365 days and convert it to grams, and the fact that muscle is only about 30% amino acid structure, it's like 4 grams of amino acids per day to gain 10 pounds of muscle. So you don't need many. If you can get like a half of a gram of extra muscle protein synthesis on those days, over 10 years, you're a completely different bodybuilder. So that I apply insulin that way, fast acting insulin, typically every other meal throughout the day. And that's because, like a humalog will have roughly a 6-hour total active life, but only about 3 of those hours are really super physiological. So if we go like, that, and then we miss the meal, and right when this one's starting to dip down, the next meal comes in. So we basically get a relatively stable level where there's as much as, 18 hours of the day where insulin's active. But why
wouldn't you use like a Human or Novulen R, which has got 2 peaks,
because the timing just gets a little more like iffy, I guess. So that's perfect for the first dose, but when you take the second dose, you still have some of that first dose that's active, and it's gonna like the amount that's active is going to be slightly dependent on how much blood flow is through that subcutaneous space. If you go IM, it's going to be even more varied. And so I just found I used to do that, and it's still an acceptable. It's basically a 1-to-1 switch. It's hard to find Humalog, and so if you can't, and people need to use that, it's a 1-to-1 protocol change. But I just find that people have more risk of going hypo in the second and third dose of the day with like a Humulin R. And I don't want you to go hypo, because the second you go hypo, you're going to eat calories that aren't in the diet, and they're probably going to be stored as fat.
So how much Humalog are you giving, or Novolog are you giving per
Not
meal?
a ton. I'm trying to take a diet we know already works and just make it slightly more efficient. So I'm not like banging 100 IUs. It's like 30 IUs a day. I mean, it's not baby doses, but it's not.
Are you doing 10 IUs per dose?
Basically, it might be like 8, 14, where 14 would be around the workout. But yeah.
Now I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into your your theory, only because I've witnessed this, with myself and other people. For some reason, when you give exogenous fast-acting insulin, if you don't give enough to cover the meal, let's say the meal's 100 grams of carbs and you give 6 IUs, okay, which covers theoretically 60 grams of carbs. A lot of times it shuts down your own insulin response so that you don't actually release enough insulin to cover the rest of the meal.
Right.
Whereas if you didn't take the insulin, your body would release enough to cover the meal. Now, sometimes your body, like you said, when you're pushing ridiculously high amounts of carbs, your body almost can't release enough. It just can't do it. It just doesn't produce enough. And that's why in the situation that you're using, your theory is correct. I know the body probably is not going to be able to cover 1,500 grams of carbs a day, so I'm going to give a little insulin to help it out a little bit. But I almost think in those situations, it's better to give the insulin after the meal so that your body kind of releases its own natural, and then you compensate with the extra that you put in there.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
I do it basically when you start eating. So it's,
Yeah,
about an hour
yeah,
after, I mean, it starts a little, but it doesn't really start climbing. And
right,
yeah, but that's partly why I don't like I never liked the 5 days a week after your workout, or I never liked that because it's like, so all I'm doing is, or I don't like the Lantus thing right now that everyone's loving it because it's like,
mm,
okay, I'm supplying additional insulin, so my body's trying not to die. So the second it senses elevated insulin, it knows it doesn't need to produce as much, or is going to try not to. And then on top of that, if it does keep producing, all you're doing is blasting your receptors, and you're just increasing the rate at which you're going to get, insulin resistance. So I never liked the Lantus because everyone's like, yeah, my blood sugars are great on it. It's like, well, yeah, it's like an alcoholic doesn't get DTs when he drinks alcohol either. But
no, yeah, but I'll dispute that a little bit because the long acting like Atlantis, Tresiba, Dujeo, Novulen N, what they do is they take the burden off the pancreas. So if the pancreas has to normally produce 100 units a day or 150 units a day, and it only can produce 120 because it's just not capable of doing more than that, and you take Lantus or one of these other long actings, it kind of takes the burden off. So yeah, the pancreas is not producing as much, but it's resting and it's
what?
accumulating more insulin in the beta cells because of that. So you're actually helping it because bodybuilders eat a lot of food. And
Yeah,
what I'm finding is, especially with the guys that are a little older, the young guys can kind of get away with it, but the older guys in their 30s, they just don't make enough insulin. They're waking up with high fasting blood sugars because they can't produce enough from their pancreas. It's not an insulin sensitivity problem because when you take a long acting, it's not like a fast acting. Your body, it just compensates for what your body should be producing. So you're not having super high insulin levels in the bloodstream like you would if you bang fast acting insulin in. So the long acting is a safer route to correct blood sugar issues. Obviously, if you're eating an enormous amount of carbs at one particular meal, you need a fast acting to bring that down. But overall, I think because of the fact that we eat so much food as we get older, we just don't produce enough insulin.
I agree with you essentially on all of that, except for the tissues desensitization. I think regardless when you have, but and the
Yeah.
caveat is that whether you take the Lantus or not, you're eating all those carbs, and whether your body's producing the insulin or you're taking the insulin. But the I think it's the body isn't. I mean, it's very effective, but it's never going to be to the second precise. So if you take exogenous insulin, your body's going to produce insulin. It's going to sense that it doesn't need to produce as much. It's going to reduce its production, but the total insulin produced by the body plus exogenous insulin, I think, is always going to be slightly, the total insulin for the day, I think, is always going to be slightly higher if you take insulin on top than if you just let your body produce, because there's going to be some lag. And this is one of the
Well,
things, like, it's fun to talk about. I don't know that it's like going to make a difference. It's like one of those really minor things that is more nuanced, that might not really, like, is someone going to notice that, and the change in their body? Probably not, but that's kind of my thinking behind it.
well, I'm going to add to that. I'm going to give you a little props on that. Yeah, you're always going to have a little bit more insulin. And the reason you're going to have that is because when you inject exogenous insulin, it goes and tells the pancreas to release glucagon because remember, insulin drives the stuff into it lowers blood sugar. Glucagon raises blood sugar. For some reason, injected insulin causes glucagon release. So you're basically injecting insulin to lower blood sugar. Glucagon is moving sugar into the bloodstream, and they're fighting each other. And that's why, you know, diabetics have a tougher time with blood sugar control because
Mhm.
they're always fighting this glucagon response
My
from
daughter's
injecting
type
insulin.
1, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do think that insulin sensitivity in bodybuilders is excellent, even those who inject insulin. Whereas if you did that in a normal person, they would get horrible insulin sensitivity. Because we work out so hard, we do cardio, we eat the right foods, we take fish oils. Our insulin sensitivity is like superb. Our bodies know how to suck up nutrients well.
Well, especially
So
if you
even
consider the amount of food we eat and
right,
the low prevalence of type 2 diabetes as a result, you can I mean,
yeah.
that's a case study right there.
Right, but we're not getting type 2 diabetes because of our eating habits, but we're getting it because we eat
Yeah,
too much food and we
yeah,
can't produce. So in other words, the first thing that these doctors do when bodybuilders go in at 45 years old or 50 years old and they notice they're having high hemoglobin A1Cs is they like, oh, insulin sensitivity problem. Let's put you on some metformin, and that doesn't solve the problem because these guys are eating 6 to 8 times a day,
yeah.
even in their. Look, I still eat 5 times a day, and I'm 56 years old. So my body just can't process all that food. So I take a long-acting insulin at night to help my body do what it needs to do because we know that slightly high blood sugars, even a couple points high, over the course of a long period of time can cause dementia. It can cause
Yeah.
eyesight loss.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
I
think
think
I always do, I need to reword how, because the two things, there's several things with insulin. I always feel like after I say it, I realize I'm not everything you're saying with Lantus is I agree with 100%. And I think the key thing for me is that you're taking Lantus at age 56. I'm always
right, right,
I'm always viewing of like I'm working with a 23-year-old kid is he going, it's because it's like TRT. I love TRT, but
right.
like the fact that once you start it, you're going to be on it forever. That's kind of more my thing is I'm always worried, like if someone gets out of the
Yeah,
sport completely and they and that happens. I mean, how many clients have you had who were gangbusters, fall off the sport, they're not on TRT,
right.
they're going to be the ones that have like the problem
Yeah.
with yeah.
You know what they've shown though? I've seen guys like in their 40s that are running high fasting blood sugars and high hemoglobin A1Cs, which is the average blood sugar over 3 months.
Mhm.
That's a good indication of how your body's. And I've seen them do 3 months of like Atlantis or 3 months of Tresiva or whatever they have access to, and then go off the insulin, and the blood sugars are perfect after that. It's
Oh,
almost like
interesting.
they arrested the beta cells. The beta cells will regenerate. There is a lot of
Mhm.
new research to show that if you
Yeah,
don't burn them all out, they'll regenerate themselves. And then so sometimes it's good to do almost like you do a PCT after doing a cycle.
yeah.
You do a little 3-month insulin, a long acting insulin, protocol, and then you go off it just to allow your pancreas to kind of regenerate itself in a sense.
Yeah,
But
my wife needs a code.
you're good.
They
You're all good.
the whole family is like, "Can you give me the Amazon code?" There's that
Yeah,
little box that says, "Do not require a code." I'm like, "Just click the box, please."
I know. I'm always hitting yes to all my workers too. They always because everything's linked to my account.
Yeah.
Let's talk about training. So anyway, so getting back to diet, I like your philosophy. You supplement with some on the high days with some fast acting insulin works great, especially if guys are not people who are prone to get fat. So let's assume that people are eating enough protein, enough essential fats, they're eating enough carbs at this point, and they're still not growing. Obviously everyone takes enough drugs. That's like not a problem.
Well, I would say if that was the equation, you can do the numbers. The Cleveland Clinic did a study. They found that 3 to 4 million Americans use anabolic steroids in any given year. 3 to 4.
Wow.
So I think 80% of those are men aged 18 to 49, and there's 55 million American males aged 18 to 49. So 80% of users. So if you do the math, you'd have 3 to 4 divided by 55. So you have like
Yeah.
less than 1 in 20
Right.
adult men are using. Like it's like, do 1 in 20 men even have a gym membership? So obviously that's not the, and then even doubly so, like you can look at yourself in the mid 90s, guys in the
Yeah.
mid 90s, it was a different world as far as acquiring PEDs back then. It wasn't like it is today. It was
Oh yeah.
hard. And you didn't
Yeah.
know, like you got what you got what you could get, and you don't get upset. So like
Yeah.
if that was the only thing in the equation, everyone would be bigger now. 1 in 15 adult men would be jacked, and
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and once again, it comes back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the show. I think that a lot of the problems are arising around the fact that we have the most incredible exercise machines ever made in the history of the world today, and everyone loves using them. And let's face it, I like using them. They're comfortable. It's interesting, the angles they work at, and then you feel contractions. But at the end of the day, I mean, you and I built our muscle, free weight squatting, incline bench pressing, shoulder pressing, behind the neck or in front of the head, neck, whatever you want to do, bent over barbell rows, copying Dorian Yates. That's how we built our bodies. Our people are relying too much on machines today.
Yeah, and I think I used to always kind of view it as, well, I remember having like a thought, it's immediately obvious after you have it, but I remember thinking like, yeah, this gets me out of breath. I like the machine better. But I was like, wait a minute, why does this get me more out of breath? This because
Yeah.
it's working more muscles, it's sucking more oxygen so it's like, if bent over rows are harder and get you out of breath for a reason. It's not because they're working less muscles. If that was the case, you'd get less out of breath. It'd be less difficult. And so I think, yeah, I mean, and the machines can be great and you can get really specific and they're fantastic for smaller muscle groups. And I think I
Yeah.
always look like, if you look at a power lifter, I think you're going to see, you're going to be hard pressed to find a power lifter without a thick back. I mean, a lot of them have amazing lats and then really good chest. They're not going to have great arms, and a lot of times they don't have great legs because their squat motion is designed for efficiency, not quad activation.
Right.
But I think that's the problem, is because like, I like progressive overload, and that works. Adding, if you're deadlifting 500 pounds for a set of 10, and you put a 2.5 on each side, you've gone up 1%. So you can kind of expect to gain 1% every week or every couple of weeks and progress that way. If you're doing dumbbell curls with the 50s, your next jump up is 55. So you have to jump 10%. So the only way to do that is to basically swing the weight more, and so you're, in effect, you're going to work the muscle less. If with the progressive overload. So I think the nice thing with machines and for smaller muscle groups is that precision it allows. But yeah, I think like find someone who can bend over row 4 or 5 cleanly, who has a small back, and you're not going to.
No, it's true. It's 100% true. And I always tell people, don't look at like, hey, I want to gain 15 pounds of muscle for the year, by my next show. I always said, gain a 16th of a pound of muscle every day.
Yep.
Which means you have to be perfect in everything you do for that day. Training, can't miss any eating, you can't miss your sleep. And if you do that every single day and you gain that 16th of a pound of muscle every single day, in 2 weeks, that's a pound of muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And in a month, that's 2 pounds of muscle. And if you have a 6-month off season, whatever, or 8-month off season, that's your 15, 16 pounds of muscle right there. People look at it as like, oh, I'm going to gain it in 6 weeks from now. I can miss today, or I can, screw up, or I can take the weekend off. It's every single day you have to live this lifestyle. And that's very hard. You have to be a super neurotic, to be able to do that.
The obsession. And like you said, that one of my biggest pet peeves is like, like intro, and we produce, I think it's maybe not, we produce an intro workout. And so I think, the science is sound.
What's the name of it? Tell us.
Field rations are inter workout. Troponin supplements or Troponin nutrition is the supplement line. But but maybe that's 1% difference, and granted, you want every percent you can, you need to be obsessed. But I have so many clients who, will panic that their workout was wasted if they didn't bring, they forgot their inter workout, but then in their check-in, they'll tell me how they went out with their buddies on Friday night, and it's like, like the bodybuilding is less about being 100% like precise in these rare moments, and you just need to be pretty close to 100% always, and I feel like that's probably the biggest thing. And I never went anywhere without food, and any travel was planned. I mean, and that was, there's no way I would miss a workout if I had to. I hated it, but that, I would never, ever, ever miss a meal. I mean, my wife jokes like, I brought packed meals to my kids' births, I had a whole bag full of, I didn't know how long we were going to be in there, but it was, I mean, it was, because like you said, it's hard to build muscle. If you compete, you only have so long of an off season. And then also you only have so long where you're going to be able to push doses to a level that can really accelerate growth. You need to make use of every single meal. And I don't think people do that anymore. I think it's, I mean, I'm trying not to be the old guy who's like, back in my day, but I do feel like, like the Rice Krispie treats or the things like, like the things that just weren't weren't a thought before, like, but it's like people are always thinking like, well, can I get away with this post workout for my carb source? And maybe you can, but back like 25 years ago, it feels like that wasn't a thought. It was, you just did what worked, and you were so obsessed that was all you thought about, and it's probably unhealthy. And I think for me it was definitely unhealthy, because I got like kind of hyper focused on my food choices, and for like the last year it was like getting narrower and narrower and narrower to what I thought was the most effective. I was basically eating flank steak and rice, or flank steak and potatoes,
Mm.
egg whites and oatmeal, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, you have to be that neurotic if you want to get that kind of results. And I've even heard Nick Walker say, I don't think he missed a meal. He said, I never missed a meal in 5 years. This was a couple years ago. He said that, and it really resonated with me, because I'm like, yeah, me too. I was the same way.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And look at the results this kid's got. I mean, he's one of the few guys in today's bodybuilding scene who's actually done the work and packed the muscle on. You can see the weights he's lifting in the gym are
Very
massive.
controlled too.
I've taken
I have
guys
a
to
cool
the
Nick
gym.
Walker story. I use him as an example too for that, because there was a video up. I don't remember where I saw it, Instagram or whatever, but someone was throwing a birthday party. Whatever supplement company he was with at the time threw him a birthday party at a restaurant,
But you broke it.
and he's in the off season. He's not prepping for a show. It's his birthday. They throw a party for him. He comes in with a Tupperware container of food, and he's eating his Tupperware container on his birthday in the off season, while everyone around him at his birthday party is eating the restaurant food.
Yeah, that's hardcore. I used to, my friends would want to go out, hey, let's go get some pizza or something like that. And I didn't want to be antisocial or anything. So I would literally, right before I left the house, I would drink like 60 grams of protein from like a whey protein or something like that. And then I'd go to the pizza place. I'd eat all the pizza I wanted, because I knew I got my protein taken care of.
Mm.
Yeah, always have to be thinking about, I would leave Thanksgiving at my relatives, and I'd be calling the Chinese restaurant to put my order in to go pick up, for my next meal. People are like, we just ate like animals. I said, well, I got another meal coming up in 2 hours. I said, I gotta eat.
And you'd be hungry for it. Back then. I used to keep shaker bottles with powder, not mixed, because it would get
Yeah.
bad. And I had
Yeah.
them everywhere. I had like 5 in my car, in my office, at work, just throughout the house. And so if like in a
Smart.
pinch, all I needed was like a faucet anywhere, and I had a protein shake.
Yeah, no, it was strong. But getting back to the training, so I took a couple people. People come out to me and train with me every once in a while, and I've taken them through like a leg workout, because they were having trouble building legs, and I change their squat stance. And I mean, I'm not a big volume guy. I might do 10 or 12 sets with these people for legs, and these people, these were big, pretty big guys, even women, and they were like crippled after the workout, and it wasn't like I was doing drop sets and supersets and giant sets like meals. It was 12 straight sets with a lot of rest in between, but
Mm-hmm.
just good form, full range of motion, squeezing, with respectable weights, obviously, on them that they could handle. And they said, I've never, for a week, they were wasted after this workout. So I'm thinking, wait a second. I just don't think people are just training right. I just think that they're too preoccupied with moving weight. They're not doing full range of motion. Now I have all my clients sending me videos. Like if I see a weak body part, I'm like, I want to see a video of you squatting. I want to see a video of you bent rowing. And a lot of times I fix a lot of problems like that. I didn't do that as a coach in the past. I just figured, hey, everyone knows how to train. But you know what? Not everyone knows how to train. And I think in today's marketplace, I think that's a big problem with the training. That's why they're not making gains. It's a training issue.
Wonder now that I just had this thought. I don't know if the magazines played a role in that, because the magazines had so
Right.
much training stuff, and
Right.
it was photos, it wasn't video. But I feel like now that I think about it, I don't really see, like it with social media. I don't know what you get with, you see little short clips, but you don't have full articles detailing training programs, why I chose this exercise, why I'm doing it this way. Well, yeah, no, I use same way with legs, because I used to read, or people would tell me they did 30 sets for legs, and I'd be like, thinking, oh my God, this guy's an animal, And then they'd like come in, because we would do like, when Steve Kukla and I train, we train pretty high intensity, brief,
Right.
we would do like warm up, over whatever, 3, 4, 5 sets on squats, then like a really heavy set, then a back off set, and then we do like a 20 rep set. And then we do leg extensions, and then like leg curls and stiff leg, and some, but it would, like you said, it'd be like less than 12 sets. Like if you're talking about working sets, it'd be like 3
Right.
working sets of squats and like
Yeah.
2 or 3 working sets on late 6, sets. And every time guys would be puking and crippled. And I'd be thinking like, what are you calling your 30 sets? What do you
Right.
consider a set if you could do 30 of them where 6 hard ones here has you throwing up?
I used to do incline barbell press, and I would go up to. I wasn't a strong guy, but when I took drugs, I got really strong. I was like a hyper responder, and I was work up to 405 for 6 reps on the incline bench. And when I would finish incline benching, you would do a couple, like you said, you'd do 1 plate, 2 plates, 3 plates, 4 plates. And after I did that 405 for like 6 reps, I wanted to go home. I'm like, I don't even want to work out anymore. I'm like, I don't think I could do any more to stimulate that muscle with
Mhm.
flies and dumbbell presses. I would still do 2 sets of dumbbell presses, some flies, but literally, I really felt that I could have just left the gym at that point because I demolished the muscle and I activated as deep a fiber count as you possibly could doing those motions. Because I would, control the weight on the way
Yep.
down. I would squeeze it on the way up. It was a really good full range rep. And I don't see guys doing that. I watch people at the gym and I see them kind of just going through the motions. They're doing a lot of sets, but they're not really
Yeah.
getting anything out of the sets.
And I think it's a finer line than you'd think because I still train, but I don't not with that same single because like I used to not be able to sleep the night before a leg workout. I'd either be like anxious or scared or excited. That would like that would the kind of the joke is what day is it? It's chest. Like I never knew what day of the week it was. It was my whole point of every day was the training, and the eating, but it was
Yeah.
but I go through all the motions and stuff, and I was just thinking this the other day. It's like I train, I go to failure, I still try to push pretty hard, but like the response is nothing like I used to get. Partly because I'm TRT now, but uh, but I
Yeah.
don't even get sore like I used to. And I was thinking like, what could that be? Because I feel like I go to failure, but then I really think back. It's like, well, now like I'm texting on my phone or talking to my kid, and then I lay back
Yeah.
on the bench. And I go to failure. But before it would be like a multi-minute process of getting my mind right, like and I'd be thinking about what weight I was going to get for the day before that, and I knew what my goal weight was in reps, and it was like, it was like the culmination of like 24 hours of thought where it's not even
It was
24 seconds
stressful.
of thought now.
It was stressful, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you'd be anxious for leg day, like
Yeah.
anxiety, because it's like, especially if I had a good training partner. Like I always talk about training with Steve Kuklok. He was an incredible training partner because he was a
Right.
kid and he just like you can't use the word anymore, but our strength he used to have. Like he would just come in with frosted tips and kind of giggling and bang out a set of like 595 for 12 on or 495 for 12 on squats.
Yeah.
And so like, and I knew he was always gonna be there. Like he'd always bring that level, and so I could never let up. And so some of those days
Right.
when you're tired, or you didn't sleep good, or you got
Mm.
the stress, something else afterwards that you got to be to, or a wedding, I don't anything, and it'd be like, oh my god, I don't know how I'm gonna pull this off. This is gonna, this is gonna just gonna hurt so bad. But yeah,
That's another thing. I think you just brought up a good point. How about training partners? We all had training partners. I don't even know how you can train with that kind of level of heavy weight without having a training partner that you trust. I never could have done the workouts that I did without
same,
having someone
yeah.
there
It's you
spotting me.
because I mean, only one of you has to be on point. Only one of you has to be fired up for the workout. When you train by yourself, it's just you,
Right.
and you might be.
Hmm.
Maybe you're ready 90% of the time, but that's still 1 in 10 workouts that you're getting
Yeah.
not as much out of. Where if I'm ready 9% of the time, and my training partner is ready 90% of the time, the likelihood that both of us are going to have a day where we don't want to be there on the same day is pretty low. So, even more importantly, those workouts where you don't want to be there, you're not feeling it, you didn't sleep well,
Mm.
you're
Yeah.
dragged through, and even more so, like a good training partner will force you to work even harder those days because he sees that you're not in. He's like, like, come on, get
Right.
your shit together. And so yeah, that was a big one. And I noticed that when Steve moved to Texas, that was kind of where my career kind of ended as a competitor because I
Uh,
realized how hard it had been because before him I had a training partner, Mike Hickey, I played
mhm.
football with, who was same way, just an absolute animal, like loved hard work. And
Mm.
so I never really learned to train. But I love training hard, but I was always with a partner. It was very rare that I did it completely alone, and it was a culture shock trying to pull that off because those 10% of the days now became 10% days where I was dragging ass and there was no one to pull me through it.
Yeah, I can't really stress enough to people how important getting a good training partner, someone who's going to show up at the gym. Because when you're dieting for a contest prep, I didn't even talk to anyone. I would just, they knew, don't talk to him, load his weights, help unload his weights and let him do his workout. And then when they would do their, competitions, I was the same way with them. They wouldn't talk, and we went through it. And, it's really important. I mean, look at Ronnie and Branch and Johnny Jack, those guys over at, Metroflex. They did the same thing. They pushed themselves, each other through each contest that they all had. And that camaraderie also helps a lot, because it's hard to push yourself in the gym. I remember my friend Doug Wentz, who I used to train with, he would be like, he'd be like, we're moving up in weight. I'm like, I can't do this weight. He goes, of course you can. You're going to do it. And I'm like, all right, you can't say no to, because you don't want to be embarrassed by all the guys that are training with you. I'm like, I guess I'm going to do it, and then you wind up doing it and you don't even realize you can do it. So.
Yeah. Especially in prep, because when you're burning fat, it produces more ATP than glycolysis, but it's not easy energy. Your body sends out signals like, hey, we're using up our fat stores. We're going to die if this continues. It sends every signal it can to tell you to stop moving. The energy's there. It's even more there. There's even more. And so if you can get through that, that's why you see it all the time with client check-ins where they're in prep and they'll, and they had a good workout and they'll say like, man, I can't believe I haven't lost strength, I'm on so little carbs. And it's like, well, yeah, you the strength is still there. I mean, other than the depletion and stuff, but maybe being a little dried out, but it's just, it's not as easily accessible. It's harder to, because your body doesn't want to use that energy, but it's there. And if you have a partner who can drag you through it, it's all still there.
Yeah, I didn't really lose strength until maybe the last 2-3 weeks before the show. You're in prep. And I think that's another mistake people make when they're prepping. They lighten the weights purposely, and then they wind up losing muscle. They don't understand why,
Yeah. No,
never lighten the weight.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I hate to keep bringing up Steve Kuklo, but he's a perfect example. He's been a good example of these. When he did his first contest, he knew nothing about bodybuilding. Nothing. And so he didn't know you were supposed to get weaker. And so he just didn't. And I remember thinking like, holy shit, I wonder how much am I allowing myself to just do things because I know I'm supposed to. It was a real eye opener because, he was deep in prep, and I would have, I would have gone into workout thinking like, oh, I'm tired. It's going to be hard. Maybe I can pull off the same level of strength for a couple sets where he had no idea. He thought, if anything, he thought you're supposed to get stronger. I mean, you're prepping for a contest, Well, and so he did. He wouldn't get weaker. And it really opened my eyes to like that fact. And then I was kicking myself afterwards because, I'd only done like 1 or 2 shows before then, but I was wondering like how much I set myself back just by kind of accepting things that I didn't need to.
Yeah, I think the mindset is really what holds us back. No one thought that they could be 300 pounds until Dorian hit 300 pounds. Once I saw he achieved the 300 pounds relatively lean, I said, I can do it, because I knew it was possible.
And it's so weird how that works. I have so many examples of that. I remember my buddy and I in high school squatting 405, and we were my first training partner. We were, head and shoulders above everyone else. No one else was squatting 225, So that felt like so much weight. And then some dude, he must have been a bodybuilder. He came in all covered up. That he comes into this gym. He's probably visiting family, and I watched him rep 495, and like my jaw hit the floor. But we were both squatting 495 probably within 6 months. Where without that, we would have probably still been 405, kings of the gym against the high schoolers. And
6 plates on each side on the squat was a very hard barrier for me to get past. It was a very intimidating looking setup. We have, what is it, 585 on there, I guess.
Especially if those wide 45s, because that starts looking like cartoonish.
The bars bending on your back, and I'm like, and it took me a while to really be able to do it. Once I did it, I was doing 6 reps. I went from being able to not do 1 rep to do 6 reps. It was or 4 reps. It's a mental thing, and you know what? That's why it's almost impossible to get past those barriers without having a training partner in the gym with you. So I highly recommend, if you want to get the biggest that you possibly can, find someone who's reliable, who has the same schedule as you, and who can be able to, commit themselves to you as being your training partner. And you'll see, I'm telling you, you'll see a lot better gains. I know you will. out there.
Yeah, sometimes they don't even have to be a bodybuilder. You know, if there's
No,
every gym has those animals who just eat whatever, don't care, but love to train like
you love
you
the
know,
trade. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Gym rats, I call them. Yeah,
yeah,
bros. Like remember we used to do bros versus pros.
yeah, yeah,
Strength and
yeah,
health?
yeah. I forgot
Yeah,
about that. Yeah, yeah,
gym bros. That's all. They're there all the time. I can go to Bev Francis. I haven't been to Bev Francis gym in probably 10 years since I moved from New York. If I go in there at 8 o'clock at night, the same guys that were there 20 years ago will still be there training. I know it.
yeah,
I've done it before. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. And those are the guys they train like they have the Olympia coming up and they've never even competed, these
yeah,
guys,
yeah.
you know.
That's funny. Yeah, every gym has them. Yeah, I can picture the ones at my gym. Yeah, they're great. They're all these great dudes too. They're usually
Yeah.
yeah, just like a great crowd. And I mean, that's really their family at that point, anyways. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's always hilarious walking in, and yeah, they're usually the loud chatterers too. Always doing some
I
kind
used
of
to,
Ronnie thing before each lift.
yeah. The funny thing is in Bev's at gym, if you go like he closed the gym at midnight. If you go like 11 p.m., Rick, my good friend Rick Collins, Legal Muscle,
Hmm.
he trains around that time because he leaves his office and he goes and trains. And he has his whole crew of people. I'm like, if you ever need legal advice, just go to Bev's at 11 o'clock at night and you see Rick there. You're gonna get some free legal advice from him. So anyway, Justin, I want to thank you for joining us today and giving some insight into how you get guys to gain weight. I think there was a lot of good motivational, information provided here, some good sound information as well. And if people want to get in touch with you for coaching, how do they do that?
The worst name ever, but troponennutrition.com. If you just search Justin Harris bodybuilding, the
Yeah.
troponin, the heart attack nutrition, back
Yes.
when the forums were around, I used to go
Right.
as troponin or tropomyosin. You know, calcium
Right.
rushes in a muscle cell, binds to troponin, moves us off tropomyosin, so the myosin inacts. So for me, it was a muscular contraction type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
On like a couple of the bigger like intense muscle mayhem, professional muscle, I
Mhm.
was troponin. On other sites, I was tropomyosin, and that's where
Okay.
that's where it came from. I never thought it would turn it because there weren't coaches back then. I never thought it
I
would be a
know.
whole
I know.
business.
I think I was the only person who knew what troponin meant, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
But I didn't know how
thank
you
God
made
no
it.
one knows about. Yeah, if I ever start coach like prepping old guys, everyone's gonna be like, "What are you trying to give me a heart attack? What's going on with this?" Luckily,
And what's the website for the supplement company?
troponinsupplements.com. You can buy them
Okay,
also on Troponin Nutrition.
gotcha. Well, congratulations on all your successes over the years as a competitor, as a coach. Would you ever get back on stage, or are you done?
I'm done. I mean, I never say never, but I'm done. I don't still have it in me. I'm so busy. Like my focus is business. I'm
Yeah,
trying to grow business, and you can't go through the motions with prep. It's yeah,
no.
and it's just. I mean, I stay in shape. I eat good. I work out, but it's different.
You look you still look big to me. I don't know. What do you weigh?
Probably 250. See, but I was
Yeah.
I was 250 in high school. I come from big
Okay.
stock. Bodybuilding for me was not like everyone in my family's really. It was just about not getting fat. That's why I kind of always focus on the nutrition
Right.
side. I've been
Right.
I was like I've been 260 since I was like 18. It was just like a fat 260, a contest 260. Just transferred.
Yeah, I'm naturally very like thin, So like if I go off, I was off TRT for 7 years when I was having my kids, and then I had some surgeries. I missed the gym. I was down to 180, like what I weighed in high school, after my heart surgery. So now
Yeah,
I'm back to like normal 215, which is a good weight for me. But I'm not naturally stocky like that at all. I have
yeah,
the
I know.
opposite. I'm just naturally ripped all the time.
I know,
That's how.
man. I've been like jealous for 25 years of that.
All right. Well, man, thanks for joining us, and we'll have to do more of these. I appreciate it. And if anyone wants to get some good information or check out some great supplements, go check out Justin's stuff. For now, we are out of time. Thanks for joining us for another installment of Guru Talk. We'll see you next time.